Julio Rosas, who is with Town Hall, and he's been bringing just some of the best coverage of this right there in the middle of all of it, unfiltered and right there from the streets. He's no spin on it. It's just he's just capturing the what I would describe as not peaceful protest. And Julio joins us now. He's been all over the country. And Julio, always so good to see you. You've been bringing just all of the footage that we've basically seen everywhere around the country is from you. And I mean, I've seen peaceful protests, and it's not to say that there aren't peaceful protesters out there. There are. But there are some violent rioters out there, and that is who and correct me if I'm wrong on this, any federal assistance to state and local law enforcement that are protecting federal buildings, that's what they're responding to. What have you seen? I mean, how would you characterize the demonstrations that you have seen out there in all the different cities that you have been to over the course of the last few weeks?
Well, yeah, thanks for having me on, Dana. Yeah, no, basically what we've seen here is I've been here since Tuesday night, and it definitely was not entirely peaceful. I mean, it really there were a lot of violent people that were out on Tuesday night and Wednesday night, and the Federal Protective Service, they were the ones on the loudspeaker. They gave 5 to 6 warnings on Tuesday night because people kept throwing fireworks. Large, we're not talking, the little poppets that you throw on the ground. We're talking large scale, big fireworks at the courthouse. They were constantly starting fires. They were breaching and breaking into the fencing perimeter throughout the night. And then eventually it got to the point where the federal officers had to come out to push people away from the fencing and to put out the fires. I got video of one officer having to use a fire hose to put out one of the fires that had been started, and they were being attacked as they were putting that fire out. And so Wednesday rolled around, and that's when it was announced that the Oregon State Police or the Oregon government was going to finally start helping and coordinating the security for the courthouse. And so, but there were still some pretty violent people out Wednesday night, and the federal officers had to go back out to prevent them from breaching the fence.
Wow. And as I understand it, there have been the total number of the 3 officers that have lost their sight because of these rioters with lasers and pointing the lasers at the officers. And I saw some of the footage you had where there was one officer who was hit with a firework that was thrown. There was another one who was, all manner of debris that's been thrown, etc. You have coverage of actually them committing the destruction, and then also the aftermath. You also had the video of federal agents that were driving unmarked vehicles, and they were the rioters that were throwing flammable projectiles towards this courthouse, and they were detaining them, arresting them, although that's always called, now apparently it's called kidnapping, if law enforcement acts on an active warrant, or if law enforcement captures someone in the act of throwing like a Molotov cocktail or something at a federal building and they're arrested. That's apparently also kidnapping. The unmarked vehicles, because they were destroying the marked vehicles, were they not? Because I know you've had that footage too. So now they have unmarked vehicles and people are mad about that.
Right, and when I was behind the police line for part of Wednesday night, and because I wanted to get video from their perspective on what they were seeing, and they were withdrawing, and there was a DHS, a marked DHS SUV, and as they were pulling away, they were throwing glass bottles, they were throwing rocks at it, and I was pretty close to it, so some of the debris was coming in my direction as well. They also threw back the tear gas canisters that had been deployed. So that's why they use, and that's why not just DHS, but that's why law enforcement uses unmarked vehicles so that they can have an easier time of catching people in the criminal act, and also to prevent, in this case, from rioters targeting their vehicles, because we saw that happen in Minneapolis when I captured video of them abandoning the 3rd precinct. All of them were marked, and so when they were exiting the motor pool, they were just getting absolutely hammered with all sorts of projectiles.
Yeah, so it makes sense that they would have the unmarked vehicles. When because you've been to a number of different cities, from your perspective there on the ground, is it a matter of there isn't enough resource or resources in that particular city to adequately respond to the violence that is being carried out by the rioters? Or is it an issue of the local leadership there does not want to call out the resources or put full resources towards stopping or quelling, however possible, within the boundaries of the law, the violent rioters that are destroying these businesses and now attacking federal properties?
It's a little bit of both, really. I mean, so like I said, yesterday was kind of the official changing of the guard. The Oregon State Police are now mainly in control, or they're, I guess you could say, the main face of the security for
Mm.
the Hatfield courthouse. And we saw, I mean, there was last night. It was actually very calm. It was now. Don't get me wrong. There was at least one fire started, and some people were still throwing projectiles. But it was, I mean, especially compared from the last few weeks
Yeah.
that we've seen, it was very calm. And so that shows that if the Oregon government, the state government, and the Portland city government was actually be willing to cooperate with the federal agencies instead of calling them stormtroopers or trying to blame them for the violence that's been happening, that the city could have probably experienced some of that peace and calm that we saw last night a lot earlier instead of day 63 or 4. Now that we're in now, it remains to be seen if that general calm. I don't want to say use that cliche, mostly
Right.
peaceful, but it was mostly peaceful.
Right.
But we'll see if that continues in the days and weeks ahead.
The moment that I heard from folks that, and this was after the federal government began sending some resources to Portland and other cities, and I started hearing stories of, oh, well, it's these federal troops that Trump sent as though they're like the Trump Guard or something. That's like Star Wars. The federal troops that Trump sent, they're just nabbing peaceful protesters. And I earnestly went and was looking at footage, photos. I went to your timeline on Twitter. And folks, if you want to follow Julio on Twitter, which I highly suggest you do, it's Julio_Rosas11. I was looking at all your photos, all your video, and I'm like, okay, he would tweet about it. He would have a story, he would have video. I have not seen anything that supports that claim. You're there, however. Have you?
No, absolutely not. And one thing that I really want to make clear is that these officers are not unmarked. That was one of the big issues not only saying that they took issue with the unmarked vans, but they were saying that the officers themselves were somehow unidentifiable and were unmarked. And that just shows again that this is just some sort of secret Gestapo police that Trump is trying to deploy against peaceful protesters.
Right.
That's not the case at all. And some of the photos that I took, you can clearly see that these are either they're with the U.S. Marshals, they're with Border Patrol, or they're DHS agents, because you can see it on their uniforms. And really that whole news cycle was started because the video that went viral of those officers coming out of the van and apprehending somebody, you couldn't really see the patches that the officers were wearing because of the angle of the woman who was recording. And it was also very dark, and
Right.
so that didn't help. So it's because of that poorly shot video of the officers and of that incident. That's kind of what kickstarted that whole I mean, it was fake news.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why the acting commissioner of Border Patrol, he had to come out and he had to show what they're wearing on their vest to say, like, hey, these people are not unmarked. And then of course they're saying, well, they don't have their names on it. And well, the reason why they don't have their names on it is because a lot of these groups that are against the cops, they're more than happy and more than willing
Oh,
to
yeah.
dox the officers. Now, they do have individual numbers and markers so that you can, if you do see them acting out or, using excessive force, police brutality, that you can tell the agency it was this designated number
Right.
with the agency. So, yeah, this whole notion that these are somehow unmarked secret police stormtroopers is wildly inaccurate because you can clearly see which agency they belong to.
Yeah, and that's good to know as well because you want to protect the people who are responding, but at the same time, you also want to make sure that nobody is ever empowered because of anonymity. But so far, I mean, I've only seen them ever responding to people actually setting fires and beating up other people and throwing incendiary, homemade, well, not even devices, but Molotov cocktails and that. Last question for you, and we're talking with Julio Rosas of Town Hall, whose coverage has been excellent on all of these riots across the country. Julio, how long can this go on? this has been how many like what how many weeks now that this has been happening, and I keep thinking that at some point maybe the momentum for this will start to run out, but surely this can't go all the way up until fall. What are you even is there any kind of diminishment or decrease of the violence and the number of rioters out there? What is your experience?
So, I mean, I was honestly quite shocked that that Portland was still going on, you know, even after Chaz when we last
Yeah.
spoke. Yeah, I was very surprised I was still going, and I actually just came off of my 2 weeks of annual training with the Marine Corps, and I was still shocked that it was still going. And so when I came back, and I like, and my boss like, hey, send me over here. There is some signs of hope, again, because like I said, like last night was very
Yeah.
calm. There wasn't any tear gas deployed. No flashbangs, were needed. No pepper balls were shot, to my knowledge. So we'll see. We'll see if that can continue. I mean, in terms of how long this will last, I mean, really, all it takes is a little bit of an excuse
Yeah.
from law enforcement for the rioters to seize on and pounce to use as an excuse to kind of kick things off again. Because I mean, originally this all started when this all started back in late May. It was Portland police
Yeah.
that were kind of facing this, but they were stretched thin, and the crowds kept getting bigger, and the action was taking more, and that's why the federal officers had to come in, or extra federal officers had to come in, and then we saw the huge overreaction to that. And so if my kind of concern is that if more action is needed by example the Oregon State Police, then they'll just say, oh well, now it's the Oregon State Police that is acting in this overly aggressive manner. And so but we'll see. Obviously the Oregon State Police, they don't want to escalate this any further. They
Yeah.
want to go home at the end of the night. And so hopefully this can die down soon, and we'll see what tonight brings us.
Yeah, we will. I can't imagine. I mean, that's some serious energy. I think a lot of people thought, oh, well, they left Chaz. So I guess it's done. Nope, it's not. Julio Rosas, appreciate not just your service and commitment to the country, but also to the cause of truth and bringing really great coverage. You have a great ability to just get in and get stuff that America needs to see. And we pray for your safety as well. So stay safe out there, travel safely. Thank you so much for what you do.